Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel, and I just want to say very quickly, if this feels rushed, if this feels a little lesser than my usual efforts for the match reactions, then I apologise, because I actually already did record my match reaction. The microphone decided to turn off halfway through, so it became unusable, and I'm also incredibly unwell. If you can't tell by the sound of my voice, or the look of my face, the cold has got me, and it's got me good. I wasn't even at Celtic Park today. I watched here from the comfort of my own home. So, on that note, I'm going to try and do take two, and I'm going to try and do it as efficiently and as quickly as possible, because, quite frankly, I can't be bothered. I hope you can appreciate my brutal honesty. Of course I can be bothered, that is why I'm here. After all, I'm very fortunate to call this my full-time job, and who would I be to knock you back from the pleasure of hearing my post-match thoughts. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. If you haven't already, please make sure to hit like and subscribe, it would be much appreciated. Celtic 4, Kilmarnock 0, the full-time result coming out of Celtic Park today. And it feels like another one of those games where looking back on it, and generally speaking, it will be more about narratives and stories rather than the actual 90 minutes of football played itself, for a number of reasons. First and foremost, it was the recovery that Celtic needed after a humbling in Europe through the week. I was very angry after the game against Michelin. That's so much so that I didn't do a match reaction. And I thought that even a win today would have been... wouldn't have been enough, put it that way, to get me back into a state of total positivity surrounding Celtic. And don't get me wrong, still very angry about what happened midweek, still very nervous about what happens with the club moving forward, but a performance today and a result today that makes me feel a little bit better. So we needed to respond, and we did. And secondly, the other narrative, of course, being, well, was that the last dance? Was that the last dance for Saint Martin himself, Martin O'Neill? Was it the last time we'll see him manage as interim manager of Celtic? We don't have the answers to that question yet. We do have Martin O'Neill's comments, which we'll look at in a moment, but I think that there's a good chance it was the last dance, and I still will talk the same way I spoke on the channel before this game today. A 4-0 win over Kilmarnock changes nothing. Celtic still need to look towards the future, and I say that with the greatest of respects and appreciation to Martin O'Neill. Martin O'Neill said it himself on Thursday, before the Michelin game, or after the Michelin game, I can't remember what side of it was now. He said that hopefully after that, he only had one game to go. Even he knows he shouldn't be here beyond this international break, and Celtic have to now begin looking into the future rather than the past. So I appreciate everything Martin O'Neill has done, and if he's still here beyond the international break, so be it, because Celtic still have the very important task of getting the decision right. Celtic still have the important task of making sure that the appointment is the right appointment and not one that we just make for the sake of convenience. So he might still be here. It might not be the last dance. But if it is, he goes with my appreciation. And I didn't get to Celtic Park today because I'm loaded with this cold or flu or whatever it is, and I don't want to infect the people sitting beside me. So I didn't get to show my appreciation there in person, but I will do it now. Thank you, Martin O'Neill. Thank you for coming in and doing what had to be done. And despite that disappointment on Thursday, which by all accounts was not Martin O'Neill's fault, that is a fault of so many areas of neglect at this football club that it's unspeakable and not even a point in going into in this video. He came in with the task of steadying this ship. He came in with the task of setting us back on the right direction domestically. He came in with the task of getting us to a League Cup final and closing the gap on Hearts, both of which he has done in his short 3 domestic games in charge. Martin O'Neill, for his first spell as manager and for his interim spell as manager, will be remembered very fondly. Very fondly indeed, and I don't think that's even something that I need to point out. I think that's pretty unanimously agreed on by Celtic supporters. But we can't let sentimentality, we can't let that love and that affection for Martin O'Neill get in the way of what should come next for Celtic. So I'm happy with what he's done, I'm happy with today, and I'm happy if he needs to stick around for another couple of weeks until we get the decision right. But this is a huge 2 weeks for Celtic, and I think that is one of the main narratives that will come out of today's game. But in talking about today's game, we should probably discuss it, shouldn't we? Today's game is exactly what we needed, with the little bit of added luck about Hearts dropping points. That comes a long way, and you now look at the set of games that will come up towards the end of November and throughout the month of December and realise what a big couple of months it is for Celtic. All of a sudden you're looking at, trying to close that gap to a point between us and Hearts, and then going up top of the league again and pretending like nothing happened. So we can take the positivity, and we really needed that positivity going into the international break, so I'm very, very happy. In terms of performance and in terms of the game itself, listen, I think there's very minimal to say about it, because it's one of those standard, I know it isn't Saturday 3 o'clock, it was Sunday 4 o'clock, but it felt like your typical Saturday 3 o'clock welcoming one of the bottom half sides to Celtic Park that you expect to, with all due respect, roll over. And I don't think there is that sense of I've never had that sense of entitlement that every team that comes to Celtic Park is just a gimme and it's just a 3 points. But when it is, it should look like how today looked. We had the spells of brilliance. We also had the spells of the game that were a little bit staler, a little bit more on the boring side. But if you score 4, you concede none, and you walk away with the 3 points, there is very, very little to complain about. Very little to complain about. In fact, the only complaints that I could have about today's game is just the reminder of how frustrating this current Celtic side is and how some of these players are. That is just the only criticism I can walk away with, because at one moment you're talking about players who look washed, who aren't good enough, who aren't delivering to the expectations they demand. And even in the same games, when they're doing that, they then pop up in moments and remind you how brilliant they truly can be. That was the most frustrating part about the game today, and 2 people in particular stood out in that regard for me. Number 1, Kieran Tierney, who has been piss poor since coming back to Celtic. A handful of, not even a handful of appearances where he's looked up to the standards required. But today, he scores a brilliant goal, reminds you of the Kieran Tierney of past, who would get forward, who would take chances, who would take risks, and pop up with moments like that. Gets his first goal back to Celtic shirt, and you're thinking, this is Kieran Tierney, this is the way he should be. And then the other one, another goal scorer today, Daisen Maeda, who has been, once again, piss poor. And even today, for the other 84 minutes outside his goal, I didn't think was that great. He missed some big chances, he missed a blunder in the first half, his first touches were letting him down and whatnot. But he scores a goal which is absolutely magnificent. Arne Engels with the pass of the season, Daisen Maeda with a goal in a month of contender, and you sit there and go, if you've got this in your locker, Daisen, why are you not doing it more often? So if I have any criticism to take away from today's game, it's just about how frustrating some of the players in this Celtic team truly can be, and how we need them to be performing to this consistent level more often. And as I said, Maeda wasn't even great today. You isolate that goal, everything outside of it, I think he actually had a pretty poor game in my opinion. Not dreadful, but just wasn't great. The sitter is still staring my mind. But he shows us. And there was other players around the park like that. Rio Hatate with the assist for the first goal. Brilliant, beautiful stuff. That's the playmaker Rio Hatate that we saw back in 2022. What happened to him? And he wasn't the only one. Or they weren't the only ones. So that is the only sort of negative spin I could put on a 4-0 win for Celtic this afternoon. And even at that, that's more to do with the frustrations of how good we can be rather than being negative about anything. So, yeah, great day, great afternoon. To talk about the football in isolation, Christ, we haven't even done that yet, and I should probably give it a go. So first half, yeah, it was good to see a freshness in the Celtic side. I think Martin O'Neill named a very interesting side this afternoon. A lot of people were pleased to see some changes. I mean, we saw Jemai Simpson-Pusey is alive in the team for the first time, being shoehorned into the right-hand side of defence, which is unnatural for him, but I thought he handled it as well as he could. Don't think he was extraordinary by any stretch of the imagination, but he also wasn't bad. He was just very average to good for a debut at Celtic Park, and obviously gives you a bit of food for thought. I mean, I'd rather anybody than Anthony Ralston in that position, to be quite honest. Defensively, though, couldn't get a glove laid on us at all. Midfield with McCowan and Hatate in starting alongside McGregor looked sharp enough in the first half. And then, of course, going forward, Johnny Kenny continues his good run of form that he's in right now, which is fantastic. I still will maintain that we need to sign and we need to spend money on a striker this January, but Johnny Kenny offering goals and showing that he could be a viable option in this Celtic order is so important and so valuable. So that should be appreciated, and if we feed into that confidence, you never know where the limit is for a progression in a boy like Johnny Kenny. So the first half, there was a good freshness about us. I mean, we only scored the one goal, and honestly, after we scored the goal, I thought it was, I'm not going to get blown away with anything, I actually thought the first half was pretty boring. I'm not going to lie. Like, it reminded me a little bit of just the staleness that was creeping into Celtic throughout the opening portion of the season. But you could see that Martin O'Neill was still drilling into this side and still instructing this side to play with a bit more direct, a bit more of a direct approach, and to kind of wrap up the side-to-side horseshoeing kind of football. You could still see that was something that the players were aiming to do. So, like, for as stale as I think it got after the first goal, we certainly could have added, like, Maida misses an absolute sitter, like the kind of sitter that made me want to see him get hooked. You know what I mean? And that's why I was saying about Maida still being frustrating and not having a perfect game. I still don't know how he missed it. And there was another couple of ones, like Kilmarnock's keeper was trying to gift it to Celtic, and we were not getting to chances or not finishing chances from anything from 3 to 10 yards out, which was quite annoying. So, I mean, there was another one Maida had that was from a bit further out, I'd say maybe from around 12 yards or so. He's got nobody around him, he has time to hit the target, and he blazes it over the bar. You know, these are the kind of things that we need to iron out. So as positive as it was, and for as fine as we were in the first half, it could have been so much better. So yeah, I was fine with it. Football was good enough. Freshness in the squad looked good. The one frustrating thing, and I've not even touched on it yet, and one of the most concerning things, is Sirachi going down. Because let's be honest, Sirachi has been better than Tierney this season. And Tierney's assist last week in the Cup semi, he's not going to cover that up for me. His goal today isn't going to cover that up for me. Sirachi has been more reliable than Kieran Tierney, and I hope that can change now that Tierney is obviously going to be relied upon as the number one left back, as he should be, to be fair. But now that Sirachi's out the way with an injury for however long, it's still gutting to lose him. It's gutting, especially because he has been looking good. He looked very, very sharp on that left hand side, even through the first however many minutes he was on the park today, and just the general wider scale of things, the injuries are getting worrying. What is happening to these players' hamstrings? You know, it is gutting, and it's concerning, because we're seeing players just drop like flies, and because the board set us up in a position where the squad depth was already bad enough with fit players, Christ, it's only getting worse for us. So suddenly, you know, you've got on the right hand side of the fence Tony Dalston, Colby Donovan, two players who are so far below the level required, and then Simpson Pusey, who's a centre-back getting made to play right-back. Then you go over to left-back, and you've got Kieran Tierney, who looks so miles off at fitness-wise, and nobody else. That is concerning, but I'm going to try my best not to get dragged into it just now. We do have an international break to recover in and to see the state of the squad upon return. Hopefully Sirachi's is only a couple of weeks, if anything, but I am worried it's going to be a 5-6 week hamstring injury. So then the second half, we continue on doing what we're doing, and we reap the rewards of that. We get a goal early on through Kieran Tierney, which kind of put the game to bed, to be honest, at that point. I think we did see a kind of drop in intensity between maybe the 60th and 80th minute or so. I thought Kilmarnock were actually looking a bit better on the ball, but they weren't necessarily threatening. Defensively, we once again handled it really, really well today. Scales and Trusty had another great game between the two of them, and it's given a lot of reassurance about that partnership, at least domestically, for the time being, so that was good. But then we picked it right back up when we get the goals late at the end with Maida and the Engels penalty. Celtic, you know, we're in about making chances. We could have had other calls for penalties and free kicks and whatnot as well, because we were bombing forward that last 10 minutes, and that ruthlessness was rewarded in the goals that we got. So, second half, once again, peaks and troughs. I thought there was moments we looked really good, there was moments where we kind of dipped in intensity, but that's part and parcel with the game of football. You're not going to be bang at it for 90 minutes, and yeah, we get some great goals from open play. Tierney and Maida's. Engels gets a goal through penalty, a goal and an assist for Engels today, as he is making the case for being Celtic's best midfielder, and I know not everybody's on board with that, but I think it's hard to, I don't know who I would argue is better. I mean, if you take McGregor out of the equation, because he's Cal McGregor and the longevity he's had this season, especially, I still think Engels comes out on top, to be quite honest. That pass is absolutely phenomenal. Liquid. Great stuff through for Dyson's goal. Yeah, generally just very, very happy with what we saw. And what a win to get before heading into an international break. So just to finish up, and sorry we've kind of glossed over the football very quickly, but there is big things to talk about. Martin O'Neill, of course, did speak about the managerial situation, and when he spoke to Celtic TV, his exact words were this: I genuinely don't know what's going to happen. It's a fortnight. A fortnight in my life seems a really long time. I'm going to take a couple of days myself to reflect on the fortnight I've just had, in the sense of a whirlwind time, maybe just to settle down, maybe keep the heart rate down for a little bit and just reflect on that. But yeah, listen, if the board make a decision in the next 2 weeks with a manager of my life, and that last sentence in particular is it warms the heart. It puts a huge smile on my face, maybe more so when I'm not unwell, because I'm so grateful for him in so many different ways. I'm so grateful for what he's done in coming here. As I said, Thursday, it's not Martin O'Neill's fault. It's not Martin O'Neill's fault at all. But yeah, I'm just I'm very grateful if this is the last dance for Martin O'Neill, and I do think it will be, to be quite honest. But we'll maybe talk about that more over the coming days when we have more information, and we'll see what happens. So yeah, there you go, ladies and gents. That's it for the match reaction. If you've enjoyed, please make sure to hit like and subscribe. Apologies for the delay in the match reaction tonight, but that's what it is. I'm going to go back to rotting in my bed. So take care of yourself, and I'll see you all next time.